At the time that we did the apartment, Surrey Hills was a very different place. It was a very different place. It was actually, and it looked to some extent it still is quite a tough neighbourhood, but it's softened up a lot. It's much more hip and much more sort of humanised now. A group of friends owned the building and they had decided to renovate it together. Yeah, it was 5 floors of apartments and they owned them, different members of the group owned different floors. And we were asked to do actually a renovation that allowed them to occupy them. It was really floor by floor, strata, bring it up to date, deal with the car parking. It was quite a pragmatic job. Some of the people wanted us to do the whole fit out and floor for them and some didn't, some just wanted the shell. And so that's the way it began. I guess the traditional way of building in an urban environment is to build to the edges. You know, you go up to your edge, the site, there's no setbacks or requirements to have setbacks. But because of the kind of bucket of space that we had, we couldn't fill the whole floor at the top. And so we weren't talking about just an extrusion, add another floor. We had to, in a way, add both open space and indoor space. And that's how the design really began, was, well, how do you add something that doesn't just look like it's always been there, because it can't just simply continue with another full floor. What are you making then? Are you making a roof? Are you making a courtyard building? Are you making something that completely retreats from the edges and is invisible? So it's really that moment of knowing that we were going to make an outdoor space and an indoor space drove a kind of re-look at what's the relationship between something new and a beautiful, robust brick warehouse. I think everybody loves Paris, but there is that idea in Paris that there are walls of buildings, and then above the wall is a kind of playful roof zone where people do quite wild things in actually quite an old city, and they never jar. There's a kind of other geometry that takes over, and I think that's where we started to think about, it was a way of thinking about being above the parapet line that could be more playful, could be more sort of unusual, and yet somehow would be held together by that thinking. Look, I think if you looked at the footprint of the site itself, it's a very unusual geometry, and we kind of like that. We quite like difficult geometries because it gives you a sort of way of resolving things slightly smoothly. And so there's kind of 3 bands. There's the outdoor space, the big room, and then the smaller spaces and the staircase. But actually the way they are hinged is because of the pinch point at the tip of the site, which actually allows them to sort of flare and wrap around each other. I think it's a general kind of feeling of, in this case, something that seemed tough from the outside and something that was much softer. It's sort of a soft-shelled, a kind of something that has an armature that protects you from the outside, but from the inside it's something else entirely. That you do feel, not that you're in a tough neighbourhood, but that you're in a very gentle and humane sort of space. The owners, Daniel Droga and Lyndall Droga, still own the building now after 15 years. He moved in here, he lived here for much longer than that. He lived here before the building was renovated, and it suited a young couple. It suited them up to the point where they had 1 child. So I wasn't surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd moved on at that point. But he moved his office here, and then he rented it to friends, and it was used to live work in various different ways. There was a fantastic food photographer here for a while. And then he's now donated it to the Institute of Architects for an architect in residence, which, I mean, for us it's fantastic to see that one space can have so many lives.